62? 66? 72? When should you start taking Social Security? Which one to choose? Well, today we rip off the Band-Aid, do a bunch of math, and finally solve this age-old question. Let's go. Social Security, the safety net that provides payments in retirement based on how much you and your employer mandatorily contributed to it over the years via payroll taxes. Established in 1935 by FDR as part of his New Deal plan, it brought the U.S. onto more level footing with other industrialized nations in regards to a national Social Security system.
This Social Security measure gives at least some protection to 30 million of our citizens who will reap direct benefits through unemployment compensation, through old age pensions, and through increased services for the protection of children and the prevention of ill health.
Then, 15 years later, Congress passed a new Social Security law, a law designed to meet today's needs. Signed by President Truman in 1950, this act gives Social Security a new meaning for you.
Social Security was born out of crisis. The Great Depression had wiped out millions of Americans' savings, and FDR knew the nation needed a safety net. Over time, it's grown to cover not just retirees, but also the disabled and survivors of deceased workers. It's adjusted for inflation, its formulas have been changed, and it's been debated in nearly every election since its creation. Now, assuming it'll still be around when you retire, and that's a whole other topic for a whole other day, but a very relevant topic. If it's around, the question we need to answer once and for all is, when should you start taking Social Security payments? Today, we'll evaluate 3 options. The earliest you can take it at age 62, the latest you can take it at age 70, or right in the middle at age 66. I'm going to tell you right up front, this is largely a math problem for which there is a correct answer to the question of which option provides the maximum payout amount. In order to solve our equation, we're going to base our time span here on the average life expectancy in the US, which is currently about 78 and a half years. But we're also going to look and see if there's a good reason besides maximum payout amount to pick one over the others. For example, what if you don't need the money at 62? Okay, let's get into it. Here's an example of a Social Security benefit statement. You can see yours too at ssa.gov. Now, before we go deeper into the math, let's quickly cover how your Social Security benefit is even calculated, because that gives weight to the numbers on your SSA statement. Social Security uses your 35 highest earning years to determine your benefit. If you worked fewer than 35 years, they'll plug in zeros for the missing years, which drags your average down. Each year's income is adjusted for inflation, so dollars earned in the 90s, for example, are bumped up to reflect today's value. Once they've gotten your inflation-adjusted 35-year average, they apply a formula to figure out your primary insurance amount, or PIA. That's the baseline amount you receive if you start taking benefits at your full retirement age, which is typically somewhere between 66 and 67, depending on your birth year. So when you log into ssa.gov and look at your benefit statement, you're seeing an estimate that reflects decades of your work history, not just what you made last year. In this example, taking benefits at 62 gets you a payout of $2,282 a month. Holding off on starting payouts until 66 gets you $3,143 monthly, or $861 a month more. And if you wait until 70 to start receiving Social Security, you would get $4,306 a month, $2,024 a month more than 62, and $1,163 more than 66. Now, it seems on the surface that holding out for that $4,300 a month amount might be a good deal. But let's do our due diligence here, of course, and run the numbers. Now, again, we're going to run our timeline age to 78.5. So for distributions starting at age 62, that's 16 and a half years of payments. These are gross payments, not compounded for any investment growth. But don't worry, we're going to talk about that option in a couple of minutes. That amount would come to $22.82 monthly or $27,384 annually. And over 16 and a half years, that would be $451,836. If you took it at age 66, that would be $31.43 a month, $37,716 annually, and $471,450 over 12 and a half years. And if you took it at age 70, it would be $4,306 a month, $51,672 annually, and $439,212 over 8.5 years. Okay, so very interesting. However, this is just gross payments. What if we applied investment growth to these numbers? In this scenario, we're going to assume you don't need the Social Security money to live on. It's going to be 100% discretionary, for the demonstration purposes here. And if you're enjoying this so far, the channel could use your help. A like or a follow would be great. Thanks. So if you invested 100% of the payments starting at age 62, by the time you were 78 and a half, you'd have more than $846,000 based on a conservative 7% annual return. Here you would be investing in mutual funds or the stock market, okay? With a less conservative but more historically accurate 10% annual return, you'd have more than $1.1 million. The numbers dropped off a bit though for 66. You'd have about $750K at 7%. And if you wait until 70 to start distributions and invest it all for 8.5 years, you'd have $598,000. But what if you live past 78 and a half? Well, let's fill out the chart for a couple more scenarios. Living to 82 and a half and 86 and a half. Let's just keep things in 4-year increments because it's easier and, my OCD is kicking in. This is where we start to see a shift in the non-invested category. Living to 82 and a half puts both age 60 and age 70 payout starts ahead of age 62. And living to 86.5 really shows the difference those larger payments make. The break even is around age 80, where your gross Social Security payments will be greater if you delay them until 70. But if you are investing 100% of the money, taking distributions at 62 still wins in all scenarios. Now, here's a real quick addendum to this. None of my numbers have taken taxes into account, but ultimately, you're still going to get the same conclusion. If you don't need the money at 62 or 66, so what? Take it anyways and invest it. Best case, you start using some money before 78 and a half, or you live past 78 and a half and you can start using the money then. Worst case, you have an investment nest egg as part of your estate and can pass it down. The coolest part of all of this to me is this is only talking about Social Security. It doesn't invest any other investment or retirement accounts. I have a great video here on the ins and outs of traditional versus Roth 401ks and IRAs if you want to learn more. So what are our takeaways from this? Well, it's a calculated risk that depends on two things: how you plan to use the money and how long you think you'll live. If you think you'll be using most or all of the money for living expenses, then it depends on how long you'll live. But really, all three age starts, 62, 66, and 70, yield similar amounts for an end age of 78 and a half. But the delayed start ages start to win the longer you live if you're not investing the money. However, in all investment scenarios, starting at age 62 is vastly more advantageous and very nicely demonstrates the power of time and compound growth. Remember that time is your friend if you use it to your advantage. But the numbers don't lie. Taking Social Security as early as possible will generally yield you more money in the end, even if you use 100% of it for monthly living expenses. This does change if you live longer than 78 and a half and delay your Social Security payments. And if you invest some or all of it monthly, it'll grow to a much larger amount than what you could get from waiting until 66 or 70 or any of the ages in between. If you do need the money at 62, well, then you only have one option. You have to take the money at 62 and use it. But if you don't need the money at 62, take the money and invest it. You'll yield way more in the end. This really is a no-brainer. Take the money at 62, invest it, watch it grow. What's your Social Security plan? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for taking a trip to math class with me today as we solved this problem once and for all. I'll see you next time. Let's go. Let's go. So when you log into SSA.gov and look at your benefit statement, you're seeing an estimate that reflects the script not going forward.